last time on the bcast. No. Trying to go for a Dragon Ball thing, but I did not think it through.
Yeah. I mean, it all just depends on what we did last time on the bcast.
Next time on Dragon Ball B.
So I think this is episode 17.
17!
Woohoo!
Yay! Yay! Welcome back to bcast, episode 17. I'm Valeria.
I'm Mike.
I'm Joy.
Joy is my sister, and she's smarter than me.
She's smarter than many.
Yeah, no, she's a cool lady, and we thought that since she's down for the holiday where people eat dead birds...
Bird Flu Day?
Yeah, Bird Flu Day, that we would get her down and, sit her down and do a podcast with her.
Yeah, she's kind enough to let us totally crash at her house for Dragon Con.
Yeah.
So, it's the least we could do.
Yes, I'm the reason that you guys know about Dragon Con, actually.
Yes.
Right? She's a goddess. Goddess of nerdiness.
Mm-hmm.
I try.
We just did Clerks. We just watched Clerks. I guess we're about to do Clerks as our episode.
I would not do Clerks, dude. He's done 12 ladies already.
That's not like
as bad
that
as 37
many.
that she did.
She only sucked their dicks.
Yeah.
It's different.
You know what? I've had this conversation with somebody in real life recently, and as far as I'm concerned, sucking a dick is everywhere. Like that's almost worse in my book. Worse in my book. Because there's a lot less protection involved.
Yeah, she put it in her mouth.
In oral sex than there is in.
That's one of the ways
sex.
that Kenny died.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Took his girlfriend to see the Jonas Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
She went down on him, and then he caught syphilis.
Yeah.
And he died.
So, as with everything in life, we can take our lessons from South Park. Oral sex is dangerous, and it counts. I mean, if nothing else, that's what Bill Clinton taught us, right?
No, Bill Clinton taught us that it didn't count.
Well, that's what he tried to teach us.
Well, I think that could go into another theme of Clerks, turning things around, right? Clinton tried to turn around all of the stuff about his scandal. Clerks, every 5 seconds in that movie, somebody's taking something and trying to turn it around on someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing the blame game.
I don't know, maybe it's the failing to turn things around. Or
I don't know if you would call it playing the blame game so much as playing the spin game, It's not even that they're blaming it on someone else.
Somehow it's Dante's fault and not my fault.
Yes, Dante's fault. So yeah, if you've not seen Clerks, stop listening right now.
Because we're going to spoiler the hell out of it because it's definitely over 10 years old. We watched the 10-year anniversary DVD, which came out 10 years ago.
Yeah, Joy pointed out that in 2013, next year, it will be 20 years old. So I was like, it's time for a, 20-year anniversary edition. But even more so, if you haven't watched Clerks, you need to stop listening now because you need to watch Clerks. Yeah. You really need to reevaluate your life.
I think everyone should watch Clerks at least once and pay attention to it. Because I know a lot of sorry sacks, just like Dante, that need to fucking take responsibility for their own lives.
Yeah. Well, honest to God, Clerks is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's affected me in many, many ways. First of all, the very first podcast I ever listened to, which obviously eventually got me to record this one, was Kevin Smith's podcast. And Clerks was the first movie that I watched that really got me into being like a movie geek. Everybody watches movies. But there's something in your life that makes you realize that you want to seek out strange and wonderful films and put real time into watching stuff that's more interesting than just boy meets girl.
More interesting than Navy SEALs.
Yeah, so Clerks is just it was one of the just most influential films in my life when I was young, and I love it to this day.
Was it your first Kevin Smith movie?
It was my first Kevin Smith movie. For a while, I thought it was the only one he did. I didn't know. It would be a while before I figured out it was a Kevin Smith movie. At the time, it was it was just the awesome Clerks movie. And then later I came into Mallrats, and I realized that it was one of the trilogy of the Jay and Silent Bob movies.
Jay and Silent Bob is a trilogy? I thought they were in all of them.
Yeah, they are, but there was only 3 by the time I discovered that.
Oh, there were only 3 then.
Yeah,
There's a lot now.
I was able to catch Dogma and On Forward in the theaters, so, but, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that Kevin Smith produced Good Will Hunting.
Yeah. Well, Ben Affleck wasn't really anywhere near as big as he is now when he wrote that, so Kevin Smith actually had some clout.
So I might show some ignorance here, but isn't it sort of a thing for Silent Bob to say, like, one movie in each film, even though he's silent? I don't think we saw that in this one, did we?
Yeah, we
He
did.
did say something.
I must have just missed it. The one line, I was
He was
not
all
paying
like,
attention when he said it.
She cooked dinner for you. What's wrong with you?
It's like, yeah, it's near the end where Jay and Silent Bob are in the store, and
Dante's like, you can't roll a joint in here, and Jay's all like, just relax, dude.
but yeah, the lines, there's 1 million fine women in the world, but they don't all bring you lasagna at work. Most of them just cheat on you. That's his line.
And he was like, oh, it's true, I love her. Yeah. So, my first Kevin Smith movie was Mallrats.
Nice.
I remember staying the night at my friend's house in, like, 3rd grade. No, had to be after that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it had to be 5th grade because it came out in 95, and that's when I was in 5th grade. So.
What about you, Joy? I know you got into Kevin Smith, and I don't think I was the instrument of that.
No, I think you were, actually.
Really?
I think I was just kind of aware of it in the background because you talked about it a lot, and then eventually, I don't even remember which one I saw first, to be honest. I think I was just aware of all of them and had seen bits of them. So I don't really know which one I saw, like, first.
Well, I just remember it was like, we were still living together when I started getting into this stuff, and it was this weird kind of transitional period where you were, like, really into Christian stuff, and I was not, and, like, I was being the bratty little brother. We didn't really get to be good friends until you kind of moved out of the house, did your own thing elsewhere. I guess we were still kind of friends. We would bond over Star Trek shit, and
yeah, it just drove me nuts when you did all your ICP makeup in the bathroom and left water all over the countertops.
Yeah, see? Yeah. Things you learned, so... But, yeah, no, I know you're...
So I do have to take this opportunity to mention that, my brother has always owned more pink things and more makeup than I do. Yeah. And half the time has longer hair, so...
Yeah.
Hey, at least now you know what it's like to have a little sister.
Exactly.
I know, right?
Yeah, we kind of...
A little broster.
Yeah.
We kind of did the opposite thing. Like, my big sis here, she was into ROTC. She... I've said it before. You're more of a man than I'll ever be.
I know. We've got some gender confusion issues.
Yeah. But, all things considered, I think we turned out okay, the both of us.
Yeah.
But, but yeah, no, just a good movie. Kevin Smith, he's one of my heroes.
I like the names for the characters that don't have actual names, like William the Idiot Man-Child and Angry Hockey-Playing Customer.
Yeah, well, they say William the Idiot Man-Child, but his character name is actually Willem Black, and they even say that in the movie, but that is exactly how it looked in the credits, too.
Nice. And then there's Woolen Cap Smoker, Eggman, Offended Customer, Cat Admiring Bitter Customer.
Yeah. Walt Flanagan played about 5 roles in this movie. And if you watch Comic Book Men these days, Walt Flanagan is the proprietor of the Jay and Silent Bob Secret Stash comic book store of that,
He designs and draws artwork for local heavy metal and death metal bands. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he also does comics stuff. Like, he's the most straight-laced guy in the world, but if you'll see his artwork, he does, like, really demonic-looking stuff. Yeah. Walt's an interesting guy.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Hunting Cap Smoking Boy. Low IQ video customer. Hubcap searching customer.
Yeah.
Angry mourner. Angry crowd at door.
So watching it, we decided to watch the original cut, the one that they made before it got the whole theatrical treatment. It had some little deleted scenes still in there. Like, one of the things that really stuck with me is there's a slight scene where Randall comes into the Quick Stop. He's talking to Dante, and he says, "Is the Pelican flying?" He's like, I don't remember what Dante says, but at some point he's like, "Oh, don't mess with it. It makes us look guilty," or something, like look shady or something like that. And then Randall goes around and he turns off the security camera. And, that's one little thing that they cut from the movie. And I thought it added an interesting, just a little kind of a spin to it. Nothing major, but it's just one of those small things. And, the music was different a lot of different places because they didn't have their big record. Well, not their big.
They didn't, finish the sound at that point. I think he was saying that in the intro before we watched it. This is before all the post-sound editing.
Well, no, it wasn't before the post-sound editing. It's the when they got picked up by Miramax, they were able to throw in, more commercial music.
Ah.
And that's what they were saying. During the Star Wars discussion, in the theatrical cut, there's a song called Chewbacca. And you can hear it, it's just in the background. They're talking about Star Wars, and the song's like, Chewbacca! What a Wookiee! It's an amazing little song.
Chewbacca lives on Endor with all the Ewoks. It does not make sense.
But, that wasn't in this cut of the movie, and there's just, some of the music that was, Soul Asylum wasn't in there, and...
Yeah, another thing where the music got changed. The Daria films.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Well, see, this is what doesn't make sense. I mean, this is kind of an aside, I suppose, but, Daria was an MTV production, so they always had, little clips of whatever songs were popular, and then Daria episodes, and then took forever to release Daria on DVD, and I found out, from reading on the internet or something, that the reason it took so long to get it on DVD is they couldn't figure out what to do about the music, because they had to have permission from every single artist, and half of them were one-hit wonders that, don't exist anymore, and so they ended up, putting in generic clips in the DVD release thing, which have nothing to do with the songs that were originally part of Daria, which is kind of sad.
That's kind of sad. Daria was awesome.
This is one of the many reasons where I will gladly say that piracy is a great thing. They did the same thing to Beavis and Butthead. They couldn't get all the rights for the many, many music clips and music videos that they used back in the day. And so when they released them on DVD, they cut out music videos. They don't even do the music video thing on the DVD segments themselves because they couldn't get the rights for enough of them. And it's for something that had that much music in it from the get-go, it's kind of, you're neutering it. It really is kind of disgusting to take the music out and put it with something else, I think.
So that kind of leads into the question for this Clerks here. Do you think that it was better here in this original cut before they had the Miramax pickup, or do you like the final version better? Did they sell out by going to Miramax, or did that get an improvement?
Well, I mean, I think it technically is selling out to go to Miramax. Not selling out whatever, but they sold their movie and they no,
yeah, but they sold their movie and they were able to make so many more.
Yeah. No, I don't think they sold out. I like Clerks as it is theatrical. The only reason that this uncut edition is in our hands is because this was the Clerks 10th anniversary edition DVD, and it came with the theatrical cut, and it came with the original VHS cut that they were shopping around. And the VHS cut had a kind of an interesting thing to it. I was just watching the ending where Dante gets shot, and I kind of saw where it was kind of like a
Galaxy's home.
It kind of worked as this thing where it's Dante was having maybe the worst day of his life. He loses his girlfriend, he's trying to get back with his ex-girlfriend, but she goes catatonic after having sex with the dead guy in the bathroom. And, like, at the end of it, he gets shot and he dies. And it's just kind of like this progression. And, I mean, it's kind of more of an indie film thing and less of a comedy at that point.
Well, I'm glad they sold the film to Miramax and remixed it and had a different ending, because if not, then there would be... Clerks 2 would just have a completely different theme. They'd be like, Dante the Ghost working at movies.
That would have been my thing, too. As much as Clerks is a good movie, I think, personally, I sort of like Clerks 2 better.
Yeah.
I love Clerks 2.
And had this been the final version of Clerks, there'd probably be no Clerks 2.
Yeah.
Or it'd just be Randall and Elias.
Which still would have been a fun movie.
Yeah, but then there wouldn't have been somebody bitching about, don't pick on him.
It's actually, I
What
think
do
in
you
Clerks
mean
2...
we're taking Porch Monkey's back? That doesn't make any sense.
Clerks 2, I think Elias kind of steals the show in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Elias is amazing in Clerks 2.
Oh, Elias.
No,
We
yeah.
should watch that.
I think we need to. I was coming up with the idea that maybe for, if not before the next Dragon Con, we should all get together and do Clerks 2 as an episode.
Oh, for sure.
So we could have Joy on again. But, and we could just watch it, because it's a good fucking movie. But, yeah, no, I'm glad there's a Clerks 2, and I think I almost like Clerks 2 better, but there's always a nostalgia to Clerks for me. It's like, this is one of my fucking...
Well, Clerks 1 was your gateway drug.
Yeah, it was my gateway drug, and so...
How much did it cost?
Huh?
$15 in your hand.
That one probably cost $20 to $25 right there, but I've had it on VHS, at least 2 DVDs, and I have a Blu-ray now, so...
If you don't, you will... Oh.
So, it's fair to say that I spent a decent amount of money on Clerks. And I will continue to, because the movies that I really love...
I'm going to buy Clerks 37 times. Every different box that it comes in. I'll have all the covers.
Well, I mean, we were talking about how there could be a 20th anniversary next year, and I'm like, you know what? If there is, I will buy it.
I will get it if it comes with a commentary with both Dante and Rachel.
That'd be cool. They don't usually do that. Kevin Smith does a lot of commentaries, but he doesn't get all his actors on there very often.
Yeah, that would be epic.
So just, I'm going to throw out a hypothetical here. So Clerks, of course, is all in black and white, and you're talking about how that's what made you realize some black and white movies could be cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what if Kevin Smith pulled a George Lucas and decided to colorize it for an edition? What would you think?
I mean, I'd buy it.
Would you, go to, if he was, this is what I would do. If he was, promoting it, going from, theater to theater and signing stuff, and I'd buy it and slap him in the face with it. And then I'd run, because there's no way he could catch up.
Well, I mean, I guess...
How did I do that with the new Star Wars stuff?
Yeah.
I didn't slap George Lucas.
Yeah, well, the new Star Wars stuff is all Disney, so... I hope they do a better job with it.
They just have Mickey Mouse in the next one, though.
I don't know, Disney does a lot of really good stuff with Pixar and all that.
Well, they also own Miramax, which put out Clerks. So, I mean, people are putting more problems or more worries into that than I think is necessary. Disney owns a lot of stuff that does good things.
Well, George Lucas used to own the company that became Pixar.
Oh.
So Disney is slowly buying all of George Lucas's things. Soon they will buy the Skywalker Ranch and turn it into Disney World again, like Disney Planet, probably.
Nice.
So there you go for the
and
20th
then they'll freeze
edition.
George Lucas.
20th anniversary of Clerks. We should have a Kevin Smith should just go ape shit on everyone. Do it colorized. Claim that technology wasn't where he wanted it to be in the 20s. 20 years ago, and add a whole bunch of scenes and change the music.
Technology wasn't where I wanted it to be in the 20s. I'm that old. I look so good for my age.
Yeah, I don't think Kevin Smith would do that. Now, he might release a color version, but that wouldn't necessarily change the thought process behind Clerks, because the only reason they shot it in black and white is the film stock was cheaper than color film. So, it's not like that kills the artistic, integrity or anything like that. However, like I said, I'd buy the color version. I'd probably watch it once, put it on a shelf, and every time I want to watch Clerks, I'd just put in the black and white version,
Yeah. I don't think they'll do that, though, because then the joke about, in the beginning, Clerks 2, and everything's black and white, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well,
Because it's all black and white, and then it's on fire, and the fire's in color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't think Kevin Smith's all about giving you multiple versions of a movie. I don't think he'd ever try and change, this is the official version, forget the old one.
But then again, you think about other things that have extremely low budgets. That's something that can kind of shapes the character of a movie, right? For instance, you think about Monty Python and the Holy Grail. If they didn't have a low budget, you wouldn't have the coconut scenes.
Right.
Oh my goodness, that movie is awesome.
They just have actual horses.
Which wouldn't have been... that would have cut half of the funny bits out of the Holy Grail if they had real horses.
There is a real horse in one bit of it.
Does there?
Yeah, when the historian is talking about, and this is the castle and whatever, and the knight runs by him on a horse and slits his throat.
Yeah.
That's the only horse in the whole movie.
Well, they probably blew their horse budget right there, and they're like, crap.
I'm pretty sure they also blew their coconut budget, because about 3/4 of the way through, they animate where they ate Robin's minstrels, and there was much rejoicing. And then after that, there were no more coconut clapping scenes.
Wow.
Well, I guess if you eat a minstrel, you need some coconut to go with it.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, they were the ones with the with the coconuts.
True. It's like toasted coconut minstrels, coconut shrimp.
Oh yeah, you just saute them in butter for about 20 minutes and brown on each side. Flip over and finish off in the oven.
Yeah.
Cooking with us. That would be terrible. What have you seen this week?
I have seen some gems this week. Let's see here. Let's start. First, I want to talk about a movie called, it's called The Creatures from the Abyss. Now, this movie I picked up at a Horror Hound. Not the most recent one that was last weekend. Oh, yeah, I went to Horror Hound last weekend.
Fantastic.
I'll get back to that. But the Horror Hound before this one, I bought a movie called The Creatures from the Abyss. And it is wonderful trash. It was made in the mid-90s. I think it was 94. So it was actually just about a year older than Clerks. But it is about these kids that go out on a raft. They get lost, and there's a storm. And they end up on this boat that's out to shore with nobody on it. And all of a sudden, before you know it, there are these, there's basically killer mutant fish. And there's this powder that's, this one kid thinks there's drugs, but it turns out, well, I don't want to spoil it too much. They're not drugs.
Turns out to be flour.
But,
it's cornstarch.
But, so they start all turning into, mutant fish creatures, and it's great. It's, the picture quality's not great. You can tell that all the dialogue was dubbed in afterwards. I don't know if maybe they recorded the dialogue and it was bad, but yeah, so everything you can tell is dubbed in, so you can sometimes see where the lips aren't completely synced up. And then the characters are so stereotypical, and they, there's this one guy with a mullet, and he talks all serious, he knows all this stuff about fish and computers and stuff, and it's there's no way you would have these specific skill sets. It's I am perfectly equipped for this, this situation.
It's like in Birdemic when they see that guy that's got Alzheimer's on the bridge, and then he starts telling them all about how He's an expert with birds, and they're just pissed off because of the climate change.
Yes.
Like, he knows what he's talking about.
And there's also some, like, birdemic level creature effects in there.
Oh, excellent.
I mean, not all of them. So a lot of them are much better, but there are some that are just as bad.
And is this the movie that you got the interview with the director, or is that a different movie?
That is a different movie. That's the second one I want to talk about.
Excellent.
But yeah, this one, it's called Creatures from the Abyss, or it's got a different title called Plankton, if you look it on IMDb. Yeah, it's
Plankton!
It's just amazing.
I watched SpongeBob today. There's an episode with Plankton in it.
Nice.
But I'm sorry. That just reminded me of that. Was this it?
Yep, that's it.
Alright.
Plankton.
Ooh, nice cover.
That's not the cover I have, but once again, yeah, it's just, it's a lot of fun. If you're looking for a good, bad movie, this definitely counts.
I bet she's sucked 37 dicks.
She probably has.
That's how she got the part in the movie.
Well, I like when they do this on IMDb. It says video. This is very clearly depicting that it was never actually a theatrical movie. Straight to DVD fare. But the second one I saw is a movie called Found. Now, this movie I gave a chance because I was at Horror Hound, and I was thinking, I've got this podcast. Let's see if there's anybody we can talk to. And there were two people sitting at a table with a pile of just one movie. And so it's like, all right, I walked up to him, like, hey, is this your movie? It's like, yeah, I directed it. My friend here, she was the producer. I'm like, all right. And they were nice enough to give me an interview. I bought a copy of the movie. I took it home. It's an actual pretty good movie. The story is that there's the story revolves around this little kid whose older brother is a serial killer. He had to borrow his brother's bowling ball one day, and he got to the bowling alley and he opened it up and there was a head in the bag.
Did he bowl with it? Because, once you're already there, you can't just skip out on your bowling game.
Yeah, he closed the bag really quickly and borrowed somebody else's bowling ball, but...
Oh, cheater.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, so he knew that his brother was a serial killer, and so he's, really fascinated with it, and he, keeps sneaking into his brother's room to check out the head, or heads. There are a couple of different heads.
His brother grows up to be the governor of Woodbury.
I don't know. It's just, it's really good. It's very well acted. It was, kept your interest. It was entertaining. And yeah, I liked it. And it's actually kind of local. I was reading a little bit about it, and it looks like they filmed it in Bloomington. So here, go ahead and listen to our interview with the director Scott Schirmer and producer Leah Taylor. So yeah, Leah Taylor and Scott Schirmer. This is an interview with them. We talked about their movie, their favorite horror films, etc., etc. So here, enjoy. Alright, this is Mike from the bcast again, and I'm here with the director and the DP producer of the movie Found. Now, I haven't seen this movie, I just kind of came across it at the con, but always like to talk to directors, people behind the scenes, so...
And after you see it, you'll love it.
Exactly. So, I guess start off to tell us about your movie.
This is Scott Schirmer, and I directed it, and it's about a 5th grade boy who discovers his older brother's a serial killer, and there's a bunch of subtext in the movie that deals with bullying. That's what our little protagonist is dealing with in the movie, and so it's almost like, how does he apply what he learns from his brother to the experience he has at school? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? And it's sort of a coming-of-age drama that quickly and rapidly descends into a full-blown horror movie with tons of gore and blood.
Alright, that's cool. It was based on a book. Did you guys work close with the author, or...?
Yes, I work at the publishing company where the author published the book.
Mm-hmm.
He self-published, and I just came across it. And usually in self-publishing, you see a lot of poetry and recipe books and self-help books. You don't see horror books that start off with the line, "My brother keeps a human head in his closet." So I was like, hell yeah, I gotta read that. And I read it one sitting. I didn't even get up to pee. And I fucking loved it. I was like so excited when it was over. I just had to make it into a movie. And then I was like, oh God, what if he doesn't let me? And then fortunately we looked him up. There was a pervert in Lexington, Kentucky with the same name. Nice. So I was really relieved to find out that he wasn't the pervert guy.
Yeah.
Although he did write found, so maybe that's maybe he is a pervert. But fortunately, he was really cool because we couldn't afford to buy the rights to the movie. Instead, we just promised him that whatever we made off the movie, he'd get a certain cut.
That's cool.
And so he's in on it. We're in on it. We made it. We're also really proud of it. And he was awesome to work with. We didn't change very much.
That's cool.
But whatever we asked to change, he was pretty gracious about.
That's good to hear. So is this your first movie?
It's my first really good one.
First really good one?
I've made lots of movies in the past for like 12 years, but Found is on a whole new level with better technology and better resources and just a lot more. We took a lot more time. Like all the other movies I made in like a week because you have to and you don't have money. But this time it's like, you know what, we don't have money, but we're going to take 32 days. So we did.
That's
spread
cool.
out over 6 months.
That's good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of just like independent filmmakers. That's kind of what drove... Well, I mean, I watched your sizzle reel. I liked the gore that I saw in the movie, so, I mean, that always appeals me to a good horror film, but I really like people that just kind of go out there and make their own movies. It's kind of something I want to do eventually, and, you know, I'm a big fan of people like Troma for stuff like that, too. So, yeah, that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, the gore was important. We knew the gore would be important to attract the horror crowd.
Yeah.
But then we were trying to like give them more than what they thought they'd get. Because, I don't know, gore just for gore can get boring after a little while. But at the same time, when I watch a horror movie that doesn't have any gore, I feel really let down. Yeah. It's like the cum shot, honestly. The gore is the cum shot in a horror movie. I mean, you gotta have the foreplay, you gotta have the sex, and you gotta have the money shot. It's all gotta be in there. So hopefully Found is a dynamic combination of everything you need in a horror movie.
Yeah.
The gore is also an integral part to the story because the movie itself is about violence and the sexualization of violence and how that has an effect on young men, particularly young men, because that's the subject of the movie. But it spoke to both of us really a lot. And I feel like that the gore in the movie, most of the gore in the movie is actually in a movie within the movie that the boy rents, or he tries to rent from a video store. The movie's called Headless. Okay. And he looks at the box and he's very excited, and then he opens it and the tape's not in there. Yeah. And the video store owner's like, oh, sorry kid, it's lost or stolen, you're out of luck, you know. And he goes home, looks through his brother's movie collection, and his brother had stolen it from the video store. Nice. And it has a little piece of paper in there with all the kills written down. And then it's obvious that the older brother is kind of copycatting. He's doing a copycat kind of a thing from the movie. So it brings up the whole thing about, you know, what kind of effect do horror movies have on people? And, you know, is this what caused him to be this way? Or is it him just being fucked up, you know? So, I mean, it's kind of an interesting high concept thing that the movie brings up, and it's part of the reason why I fell in love with it so much and wanted to help Scott make it.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. I like that it sounds like it's got a good story to it. You know, there's nothing wrong with the story in horror movies. I mean, there's nothing wrong with movies without story, but still, like the ones that really stick with you have a good plot and good characters you'll care about and stuff like that.
One of my favorite things we hear from people that have watched it is that they can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Or that they want to see it again. So that's awesome. Or that they buy it after they see it, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah, Horror Hound Magazine says that the movie has one of the most brutal endings ever filmed. So I'd love to hear what your take on that after you've seen the film. So
I will. I'll definitely. I've bought the movie. I'm going to watch it, and I'll definitely talk about it on the next podcast. This interview will probably be in there as well. And I have your contact info, so I'll probably try and make sure I get you guys a link sent out when that's up. I hope to watch it pretty soon, and I'm hoping I like it.
I hope you do too, because otherwise you'll be a lot more sad about putting this podcast up. It's like, God, this movie sucks.
No, it won't bother me. I'll be like, these guys tried. I didn't like it, but some people do.
It's not for everyone.
You know,
we knew that.
There's nothing wrong with that. There are movies that people love all over the place that I can't stand. So I mean, that doesn't mean anything, but I mean, I thought it looked good, and so I'm gonna give it a chance. And so were you guys? Are you big horror fans above and beyond just having made one, or?
You go first.
Yeah, I'm a big horror fan. I didn't start off as one. I honestly had a huge misconception about what horror was. I thought that it was all slashers and that was it,
Yeah.
I didn't realize it went deeper than that. And then about 5 years ago or so, I actually was an intern for a horror film festival where I'm from in Bloomington, called Dark Carnival Film Fest.
Okay.
And I kind of started off as an intern there, and then I just fell in love with it and got to see so many amazing independent horror films from all over the world. And it kind of changed my life, and I've kind of changed the way that I've do things, and now I'm really into it, and I just love making them. I feel like horror really gets to the truth in life. You know what I mean? It's not afraid to deal with real fears in a metaphorical way.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. It's just like mythology, it's the same kind of concept where people look to mythology for that kind of thing, but now I think horror films sort of fill that role.
Yeah.
So.
I was sort of like Leah too. I didn't love horror movies growing up because when I was growing up it was mostly the 80s and it was mostly silly slasher movies. The slasher movies had gotten kind of funny by that point. So I had discounted the genre too. But then in college, I told my roommates I didn't really like horror movies. And they were like, well, that's stupid. You need to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Evil Dead. And so we went and rented them and I watched them and I really loved both of them.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh yeah, that is stupid. I don't dislike horror movies. I just haven't seen the right ones. So and we actually see a lot of people that still think that. Like today, people think horror is all torture porn.
Yeah.
So they don't realize that there's atomic horror, there's Universal Classic Monsters, there's Hammer films, there's whatever that sick-ass shit the French and Japanese are doing. I mean, God.
Yeah,
that's the most disturbing shit on earth is what those two countries are doing.
Awesome.
Really
but
is.
it's a diverse genre, and I really have fallen in love with it because, like Leah said, you can deal with so many issues in horror and science fiction too. Maybe fantasy to some extent that you just can't talk about in dramas and comedies and romance and shit. That stuff's so tied to earth that it's kind of boring. Let's talk about what it's like not to be human anymore, to lose your body and things like that scare people.
So, another couple of quick questions, and I'll let you guys get back to it. So, both of you, do either of you have a favorite horror film?
Texas Chainsaw.
Chainsaw Massacre?
For me, is just way far and above and beyond. The original Texas Chainsaw is just this pinnacle of awesome perfection that I will always be reaching for. Never want to copycat it, but just something that tenacious and fearless and just, God, frenzied.
All right.
When it's over, you just feel like you had sex and died at the same time.
Nice.
I don't really have I hesitate to answer that question because it's difficult. I'm still learning about the genre. I've only been in it for about 5 years now, and I haven't watched all there is to see, But I can tell you what my favorite horror movie that I've seen this year is.
Okay.
And that is Excision.
I saw that not that long ago.
Fantastic. So. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved especially the dream sequences. She has a very intense love of surgery, and that really spoke to me in a really interesting way. And the lead actress, it's like Mary Beth McCord or something. I forget her name. Please cut that out or something. But she's incredible, and it's got interesting. Tracy Lords is the mom. John Waters is in it briefly. Ray Wise. So I don't know. It's just and it's not just because of the star power. It's got a really interesting story that spoke to me in a lot of ways. So
it sort of is kind of like a companion piece to Found from the female point of view too.
Because it's about two sisters, and this is about two brothers. So it's it spoke to us in that way too. So. But I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and it was gorgeous.
Gorgeously shot.
Yeah.
God, if you haven't seen that movie, please just do me a favor and go watch it.
I just bought it. I loved it.
I did too. I bought it sight unseen as well.
Yep. So I just talked about it like 2 episodes ago. It's quite amazing. So So. You guys, you made your movie Found. You're Scott Schirmer, the director, Leah Taylor, the producer, director-producer. Where can people find your movie? Where can people find you?
Until after Halloween of 2013, we're really just going to be available at a few convention screenings and film festivals around the world.
Okay.
We've entered a bunch, and we've gotten into some already. So I would just say stay tuned to foundmovie.net or facebook.com/foundmovie to see where the next screenings are, hopefully near you. But we do have a few nibbles from distribution companies already, so I feel pretty confident that we'll have a distribution deal maybe as early as the end of 2013, if not 2014.
Okay. Yeah. So you heard it, guys. Just keep an eye out. The movie will be available soon. And thank you both for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
No problem. It's nice to meet you.
You too.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, guys. And we're back.
And so while you were at Horror Hound, you went to the trauma booth, and there's still no Lloyd.
No, there is no Lloyd.
So we've been on this epic quest to find Lloyd Kaufman, and we usually see him all the time at these cons, and he has not been to any of the cons this year.
No. Which is could be kind of a good thing, because he is finishing up the new Class of Nukem High movie, and a new trauma movie with Lloyd involved is always a good thing in my mind.
Yeah.
But it does suck because, yeah, we have not seen Lloyd Kaufman for a while.
So when we were at Dragon Con, we went to a panel that he was supposed to be at, and they just showed us a lot of behind the scenes for Class of Nukem High.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the way that they portrayed his involvement was, are you guys done yet? You guys need to do these things.
Yes.
You're behind schedule. Do it faster. Do it better. You should know better.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so it's hard to say what all's going on. I kind of asked if he was doing okay, because he is kind of getting up there in years, and the guys at the booth said he's still just doing fine. He's just busy, so hopefully that's the case.
I like how you just, you haven't seen Lloyd in a few months, and it's not like you're his friend or anything, and you just automatically assume that he's dying.
It's just a concern. I mean,
you're like, I haven't seen him. Is he dying?
Well, Mike watched lots of slasher flicks, so that's his automatic assumption for everything.
Yeah, I like to also, if I don't see somebody for a long time, just assume that they're dead, and then when I do see them, I'm super excited to see them again.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's just kind of a thing that for about 2 years, I saw Lloyd Kaufman at a convention every 2 or 3 months. So,
He was probably like, man, I'm not going to that con. Mike will be there.
and that could be the case. He's like, oh, that stupid kid. He let me call his friend Marge, and it turns out that nobody was named Marge.
It's okay. He probably doesn't remember.
But, yeah, so, I don't know. I just kind of worried about him. I do like Lloyd. He's a great guy.
Then you also wanted to talk about a Grindhouse trailer?
Oh, yeah. It is Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving was yesterday, actually.
Yeah, we almost watched Thanksgiving and then the other podcast today.
Yeah, I still want to watch Thanksgiving, and eventually we can talk about it just a little bit, but I just accidentally tapped it. Alright, yeah, we just turned the thing off, so here, you might have missed a second. Yeah, we were talking about how we still wanted to watch Thanksgiving and talk about it, but the trailer, is Thanksgiving by Eli Roth. It was in the Grindhouse movies that came out a couple of years back. There was a whole Grindhouse double feature experience that Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez decided to put out. And if you were able to catch this the way it was meant to be, it was amazing. I know after a while they split the movies in two and released them separately. That's how most people were able to get them on DVD and Blu-ray for the longest time, Death Proof and Planet Terror. But they were each two different parts. See, I mean, I like Death Proof. I like it more now than I did when I first saw it, but for me it was always the weaker of the two movies.
A lot of people told me that movie was really, horrible, torture porn horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Then I watched it and I'm like, it's over?
But Death Proof?
Yeah, I'm like, that wasn't bad at all.
No. Death Proof, it does have an interesting twist to it. They spend the whole first 30 minutes of the movie building this guy up to be this badass, like, murderer kind of guy. And then in the second half, these girls just kind of track him down and beat the shit out of him, and he's like, crybaby.
I don't even think they track him down so much as they just see him on the road, and he tries to run him off the road, and they're like, we're not taking this shit.
Well, I mean, yeah, they just kind of... He tries to run him off the road, and they fight back.
Yeah.
And he's not used to that, and, yeah.
He's really not used to it.
But in between the two movies, they had these trailers, and this one was made by Eli Roth, and it's amazing. It's got, like, this kind of 70s vibe. There's, like, grit on the screen, and it's just this guy kind of, like, narrating this. There's this little town that has Thanksgiving traditions that are really important, and there's this Thanksgiving killer going around killing people. He cuts off the turkey mascot's head. He kills horny teenagers, and he kills and stuffs an old lady.
They should have been watching Jason's PSAs. They would have saved their lives.
So, I mean, yeah, it's a cool little trailer. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. Just look for the Thanksgiving trailer, search Eli Roth. You can find it on YouTube pretty easily. It's really cool. I wish it were turning into a whole movie, because they made Machete after the Machete trailer from Grindhouse.
And that was good. And I think they're making Machete 2.
Yeah, they are working on Machete 2, which I'll check out, but I'm not the biggest fan of Machete. I like it a decent amount, but, like, the trailer was good. The movie was kind of dull. Although it's pretty accurate depiction of what that kind of movie might have actually been like. So, why don't you tell us about a movie, Joy?
Well, one of the kinds of movie nerds that I am, I guess, would be like foreign films. So, one that I saw recently, the English title is Welcome to the Sticks, and the original title in French is Bienvenue chez les Sticks. And so anyway, I've got a friend right now who's a researcher, just kind of doing a temporary thing over here in the U.S., and he's from France, and so anyway, being a language nerd, I like to practice French with him, and so he was telling me about this movie. So, kind of interesting thing about France is that, I always thought, until I went over there, that, France is France, and they've spoken French, like, since they kicked the Romans out,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But really, they had, like, up until a couple generations ago, like, dozens of dialects throughout the country. And, like, a lot of those are dying off now. But in the northern part of France, there's this, like, kind of group of people kind of known as the Ch'timi, or they sometimes shorten it as Ch'ti. And that's where the title comes from. Bienvenue chez les Ch'tis means welcome to the place of the Ch'ti. Or they just translate it in English to welcome to the sticks. So basically, they speak a language that's very, very similar to French, but some of the words are pronounced a little different. Like, for instance, anytime they have something that has like an S sound in French, it's more like an SH sound in the Ch'timi language. So there's a lot of comic scenes in there that just play on that language bit. Like, for instance, there's a whole bit where basically the summary of the story is that this guy he's married to a woman who's depressed, and so to try to, like, make her happy, he's trying to get a job, like, at the coast of France on the south side where it's all warm and the weather's nice and you're right on the sea. But every time he tries to apply for it, somebody else, like, some guy that's, like, handicapped or disabled gets it instead. So he ends up pretending to be disabled till he'll get that job. So, but then when the guys, like, when the, head office comes to make sure he's really disabled, he botches it up and they figure out he's not disabled. And so as a punishment, they send him to the northernmost post that they have in France. And, of course, it's kind of funny because his wife is just, like, freaking out, like, it's so cold up there. Like, she makes him go, like, in this, like, heavy, heavy coat every single time, like, that he goes to drive up there, like, bundles him up before he even, like, gets in the car. But it's pretty funny because when he first gets there, he gets to the new office and he's like, it comes with an apartment, and he goes to see the apartment and there's no furniture in it. And he's like, wait, you mean it's not furnished? And the guy says, well, I think the last manager took all the furniture with him. It was his dogs. Mm-hmm. He's like, what? He gave his furniture to the dogs? What do you mean he gave his furniture to the dogs? And he's like, I don't know, it was his dogs. I mean, what do you mean? What are you asking me this for? And it ends up being a whole play on a word, because in French, he was saying, in French, les siens means it was his. Like, so he was trying to say that the furniture belonged to the old manager, but because he's doing the whole swapping of S and SH, he's saying les chiens, which les chiens is dogs. So the French guy is thinking, like the guy from like the normal French dialect is thinking that he's saying that the furniture belongs to his dogs, when in fact he's just saying the furniture was his furniture in like that dialect. So there's a lot of play on words stuff. It's kind of fun.
It looks funny from the cover.
Yeah. Apparently this guy Danny Boone, he's the guy with the hat on sideways there. He's, I guess, a big comedian in France, like really famous. Well, the other really cool thing, like there's several cool things about this movie. Another thing that was really cool is like the guy, also Danny Boone, his character plays I think they call it like a carol wheel or something. I forget the name of it, but it's basically like bells in a cathedral that you just play songs on. So you play it like it's a piano keyboard. Nice. But yeah, so it's pretty cool. He plays it really well in the movie. Another part that's a lot of fun in that movie is the guy keeps like coming to work and he's a little bit drunk, and so the boss is getting concerned about him, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna go with you and like see why this is happening." So it turns out like he's a mailman, right? And in the region, like, everybody, they're so friendly that every time he goes to deliver the mail, when he knocks on the door, everybody's like, "Oh, come on in for a second." And then every place he goes to deliver mail, they give him something to drink. So by the time he's delivered all his mail, he's, like, shit-faced, right? So that's another kind of funny scene in the movie when they do all that. But I guess, like, one of the last things that, like, sticks out to me, they have a line in the film that says, like, you know, when you come up to this part of the country, you cry two times. You cry when you first get here, because it's cold and the weather's awful. Then you cry when you leave because the people are so cool and you're going to miss them. So, yeah. I recommend it. The only thing I would, advise listeners of this podcast is the whole bit I explained about some of the, like, play on words humor. A little rough to do in subtitles. The first time I watched it with French subtitles just so I could, like, catch all the words. And the second time I watched it with a friend with the English subtitles, and just felt like the jokes didn't flow nearly as well when you're trying to read an English approximation of the play on words that is happening in French.
It kind of happens every time you watch a movie that's got subtitles. There's always something that's lost.
Yeah, you always lose something.
I'll have to go on the record as anybody who, is like, French movie. My sister has really good taste in movies, actually. She sat me through a couple of them. And, even if I start off like, subtitles. And I have nothing against movies with subtitles. It's just sometimes I feel lazy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to read my movie. But still, I've never been really disappointed when she's like tried to show me a movie. And
like Pantaleon.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, some of my favorite movies you put me on too. Like there's one that I want to do for the podcast, and I keep wanting to show people, Forgiving the Franklins.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That's not a foreign film at all, but it's this amazing, like very interesting view on religion movie. And
which I actually first saw that at DragonCon, believe it or not.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought you saw that at like an Acquire the Fire or something like that, or
no,
Cornerstone.
Jesus of Montreal. I first saw at a Christian festival.
That makes more sense because Forgiving the Franklins I don't see at a Christian festival so much. But
Forgiving the Franklins I actually saw. It was DragonCon. Gosh, probably 6 or 7 years ago now, and it was kind of one of those like 10 o'clock at night. There's nothing I've got in the program I have to go to right now. Let's just walk into something. And so I walked in. I'm like, oh, here's a movie. This is cool. And, like, I think about 10 seconds after I walked in, it was a scene where she walks out of the house completely naked to go pick up the newspaper, and I'm like, what? And so, I don't know, I have to say I was, like, intrigued at that point, like, what is this movie? And so I kept watching it, and it turned out to be really good.
Yeah.
So then, at that time, they didn't have it out on DVD yet, and so for, like, a year and a half, it was driving me nuts, because I'm like, I want to know how this movie starts. I walked in, like, 30 minutes into it and had no idea like what the setup was. And then finally it came out on DVD and I was excited.
Yes, and then I copied your copy of the DVD, and so I have it on my computer. One of these days I want to get an actual physical copy of it for myself. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's something like that I really enjoy. I think is movies that challenge traditional positions on religion.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why Jesus of Montreal, Forgiving the Franklins. I like both of those a lot.
Yeah.
Another good one is But I'm a Cheerleader, which isn't really a religion one, but it is kind of challenging popular views of things.
Yeah, But I'm a Cheerleader is a really good movie. And yeah, the religion's there, but it just kind of...
It's kind of a subtle background thing, not so much in the forefront, I guess, for that movie.
That movie is so well done. I love, just the entire view of that. Have you seen But I'm a Cheerleader?
No.
We'll have to make you watch it sometime.
Okay. I'll watch anything.
But I'm a Cheerleader's it's about a camp where you can send gay kids to become straight again.
Cool.
A little bit like Saved, actually.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
But it's all about the camp. You go there with them instead of...
And of course,
instead of just...
The irony of the movie is that the girl who gets sent doesn't even realize she's gay, and her family has this big intervention to send her there. And of course, then when she goes there, it's kind of like a subtle thing where as she's there, it kind of like makes her realize that she is, even though she wasn't aware of it before she went.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like when Butters has to go to gay camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, I am confused, and we're all confused together.
I remember that episode. That one was pretty funny, actually.
And he was actually just confused.
Yeah, well...
Why am I here? What's going on?
Cartman took a picture of him with,
right.
like, his penis in his mouth while he was sleeping. His dad saw it. He's like, are you bi-curious? And I'm like, I guess so, Dad. I'm kind of curious. I don't know what's going on.
So this one here, the Welcome to the Sticks I was talking to, is supposedly like the most popular, the highest grossing French film of all time in France.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was like the most popular because it is so funny and it's like about that specific region. I seem to have a knack for finding like the superlatives, I suppose, because another movie that involves French language that I highly recommend is Bon Cop, Bad Cop.
Mm-hmm.
And that one I think is actually like the most popular Canadian film of all time.
Nice. Well,
No, seriously, like when I was in France, like I think 75% of the movies at the theater were like English. They were from like the States. But yeah, Bon Cop, Bad Cop that I was talking about. That one's a fun one. It's about a series of murders actually that happen, and they all involve in some way hockey, right? Because it's Canada. Everything has to be about hockey in Canada. I think it's the law.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Even if you are like asking bartenders for directions to strip clubs, they start talking to you about hockey. It's crazy.
Yeah, it has to be in hockey metaphor or something.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this is a series of murders related to hockey, and of course the first one, when they find the body, it's literally like indented in the sign that tells you that you're going from Quebec to Montreal. So, like, right on the border between the French and English-speaking parts of Canada.
Nice.
So then they can't decide which police department should cover the case and, like, try to figure out who the murderer is. So they end up with one cop from each side and make them work together. So it's kind of your typical good cop, bad cop, or, like, straight-laced versus cowboy type cop story. So the French-speaking cop is very, like, no rules, fast cars, bar fights kind of cop. And then the English-speaking cop is very, like, by the books, need all the paperwork, let's follow the rules and procedures kind of cop, and they end up having to work together. But, another thing that I learned from this movie, it's kind of funny because, French curse words, like, the curse words in Canada are totally different from the curse words in France.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, like, in Canada, half of their... Actually, it's kind of funny to me, because I guess half the Canadian curse words are, like, all church terms. Like, tabernacle is, like, a curse word in Canada, which basically means, like, sanctuary.
Nice.
But, yeah, they have a whole scene in Bon Cop, Bad Cop where the French cop explains, like, Canadian-French cursing and how to conjugate it properly.
Nice. I think one of my favorite French language films is Angela, but it's like spelled angels like -A, so it's like Angel A. And it's a Luc Besson film, the guy that did The Professional and The Fifth Element and stuff. And it's this guy who's about to kill himself. He's like about to jump off this bridge.
Yeah, that guy's from Morocco, actually.
Is he?
Yeah, actually, I was watching that in France, and somebody was telling me that guy is a Moroccan guy. And he doesn't have... One of his arms is missing.
Really?
Yeah.
He should play Rick in Walking
Well, I don't know if it's missing or if it's just, like, inoperable, but if you notice, because that's the same guy, he's also in Amélie.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. That's probably my favorite French film.
But if you, like, watch closely, like, I never noticed it before, but he always has, like, that hand in his pocket, and he never uses that arm, and I never noticed that until somebody pointed that out to me.
It's like Scotty and his missing finger.
Exactly.
You never notice it until you know it's there. You start looking for it. But yeah, Angela. Very good movie. Guy's about to kill himself, and then all of a sudden, standing next to him out of nowhere is a very beautiful, tall, leggy woman about to throw herself off the bridge.
A lady woman. Women who like pink.
No, I said leggy.
A leggy.
I thought you were saying a lady.
I mean a lady woman too, sure.
She was a lady woman, not a man woman.
It doesn't.
We checked.
Whether or not she likes pink is not really determined by this movie because it is also in black and white. So, and as we all know, black and white movies don't suck.
Yeah. Like many a black and white movie, there's a Jimmy Stewart movie about Nazis that I really like, and the Madame Curie movie is black and white. And Harvey the Rabbit, very funny.
It's a good one. I actually, earlier this year, saw Nosferatu in black and white, which actually, there's this place in Atlanta that I've only been there one time, and it was to see Nosferatu, and I'll definitely be going back, but it's called the Goat Farm Arts Center.
Interesting.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, and basically they bought all this land that had, like, old factories, like, brick buildings and stuff. And it was, like, this huge, like, artist complex. So, like, half the buildings were, like, falling apart, and they, like, left them that way for the artistic quality or something. But, yeah, so they were playing Nosferatu, which is, like, a 1920s, basically plagiarism of Dracula. And along with the movie, they had this guy from, I think he was Chilean, who basically, I think he composed his own music. I was a little bit confused about it. Because apparently this particular film had a music track composed for it, like, to play on the piano, which I guess most black and white films didn't have a specific track composed. I think this one they said that it originally did, but I guess it has been lost over time. So this guy from Chile decided to write his own track to accompany the movie. So it's kind of a cool concept. My only, like, criticism, I guess, would be that, you know, while it was cool that he had all this music to go along with the movie, I felt like his soundtrack had, like, one sound. Like, it was always the same sound. And it was really appropriate for, like, when there was a big scary scene. But it didn't always match the feel of the film. Like, it's a
cartoon
very
spring sound, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like constant. Yeah, like, so at the very beginning of the film, it's like a happy thing. Like, nothing scary has happened yet, right? It's like happy people in the 20s, and they're all like, you know, like 20s films, like, oh my darling, I love you, blah blah blah. You know, so it's like a really happy feeling, and yet he's still playing this creepy something bad is gonna happen music, so it doesn't, like, fit yet, right?
Yeah.
The riff tracks version of Little Shop of Horrors does that. They have this running gag of inappropriately scary music.
Is this for the old one with Jack Nicholson, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I wanted to mention that, since you brought it up, in the movie Found, there's great music in it. Like, the music really sets the tone, and it's not like, and is music done well. It's not like scary music when it's not supposed to be scary. It's scary when it is scary, but it's something I noticed. But
So the Jimmy Stewart movie I was talking about, it's called The Mortal Storm. It's pretty good. It's obviously about Nazis, but, like, when it was made in 1940, it was still, like, a big deal going on. So they never called them Nazis, and they never called Jewish people Jews. They called them non-Aryans, because they didn't want to say say it hands down because it was, the wars are still going on and stuff. And and they tried to, not say it because they didn't think the German audience would get it, and they still wanted to sell the movie in Germany.
Fair enough.
Well, if you want to see something interesting sometime, on Netflix, I watched this thing once called A Film Unfinished. Have you seen that on Netflix? Mm-mm. It's kind of interesting, actually. It's somewhat of a documentary, but basically they found all this footage that the Germans had taken, I think, when some of the big ghettos were still in operation, like before they had all the concentration camps and death camps. But yeah, so it was, they basically found all this real footage that the Nazis had taken, and I think they even found some people who had been in those, in the film footage taken, and did interviews with them. But basically it was obvious that they were trying to make some sort of a propaganda film, but nobody can find any plans for what they were intending to do with the footage. Of course the ghettos were horrible living conditions. People barely had anything to eat. They ate literally anything that could have any remote nutritional value, but yet some of the film footage would show people eating in restaurants and all sorts of things, and they had interviews with some of the people who were there, and I think they were it looked like the Nazis were trying to portray the Jews as uncaring or something. They would show some of them eating in a nice restaurant, and then show after that shots of just bodies piled in the street. It's kind of creepy because it's all real footage, and you're kind of wondering what they were trying to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, basically they forced people, if you want to live, you're going to act in this movie. And so they would make them, do certain scenes and then show all this stuff. So it's kind of interesting because it's a documentary, but it makes you wonder, what was the purpose of this film? Because nobody can find any, information about it. Another one I watched that was pretty cool was called The Rape of Europa. And it was kind of a documentary about how art played a role in history in Hitler's plans. So I mean, if you watch the documentary, two things that stuck out to me is one, Hitler had applied to be an artist. He applied to study at some art schools, and I think he ended up getting rejected, which sort of made me wonder, man. Well, apparently he thought very highly of his art, even though real artists didn't. Mm-hmm. But, had he been accepted, how would world history be different? That was kind of an interesting thought that came to my head. But then the other thing...
Get the fucking trees right! I'll kill everyone in the world!
And that's what happens to artists.
Yes. For more info on Hitler's failed artistic career...
Here's your vegetarian, Mr. Hitler.
See Eddie Izzard's Dress to Kill.
Yes. Which he does half of in French.
But yeah, so apparently, they, at least if they're portraying things anywhere close to accurately, it makes it sound like half of Hitler's scheme of where he wanted to invade first and so on and so forth. Some of it was probably political, but a lot of it was centered around what country had what pieces of art that he wanted to acquire for himself.
Wow.
But they also have some cool stuff later on in there, once Hitler finally got around to invading France, France was well aware of what he was doing with art and everything else, and they actually had some interviews with people from the famous Louvre Museum, and how they basically, once they knew that Germany was going to come and occupy France, as soon as they found out, they had safe houses lined up for all the artwork in the Louvre, and they shipped it all out. So the Louvre was empty when the Germans marched into Paris.
Nice.
Including, actually, since you're mentioning Angela, remember the part where they're I don't know, I think they're talking to that shady guy, I even forget, but they had that winged statue that doesn't have a head.
Yeah.
I think that's called the Victory statue. It's a famous carving. And they actually showed in that movie Rape of Europa, that statue is in the Louvre, and I've actually seen it at the Louvre.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and during World War II, when they knew that Hitler was going to come in and probably want all of this artwork, they moved that statue, but they had to move it down a flight of stairs. And so they interviewed some of the people who did that, and they were talking about how they were all just scared to death they were going to drop it and break this priceless statue.
That statue is pretty badass too.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think that's going to about wrap it up for podcast bcast episode 17. if you listen to this episode, you should have plenty of stuff to go out and watch. I think we talked about 1.5 million movies. So
Yeah, see
everything
all
from
of the
slasher
French
flicks
films.
to documentary.
And of course, watch Kevin Smith movies. Watch them both in the same night. It'll probably fuck your head over.
Watch both Kevin Smith movies. What? There's 10 of them.
I mean, pick a French Nazi documentary, and then watch Mallrats.
Yeah.
And that should be an interesting night.
Watch Clerks and then, just try not to be Dante.
So I hope you enjoyed this podcast for this week. I'm Mike.
I'm Lyria.
I'm Joy.
See you next time.